one of the big misconceptions about being a short-term rental investor is that you are a real estate investor and just a real estate investor, and you're not. You're a hospitality small business owner, right? You know what the experience is that you're wanting for your guests, and it falls on you to ensure that you're training your staff up to the level of that excellence to make sure that things are happening the way that they should each and every turn.
Welcome to STR Unlocked, a podcast for driven vacation rental investors looking to gain the freedom that comes with an abundance of time and money.
I'm April.
And I'm Nathan.
Our life is busy with 3 small children, full-time jobs, and not nearly enough coffee. And we're unlocking success with short-term rental investing every single day. Join us in our journey as we learn and grow together.
If we can do it, so can you.
Welcome back to another episode of STR Unlocked. I'm here with my wonderful host, Nathan.
Hey.
My handsome hubby.
We decided to change it around this time.
Keep it interesting.
We're so glad that you're here today. Today is going to be episode 5 of the STR Unlocked podcast. And, you know, I figured we were sitting down and we were trying to figure out what should we talk about today. And we realized that probably one of the most important things that we can talk about, and one of the things that we probably get the most questions about, is building your team, specifically finding the right cleaners for you. So that's what I figured that we would start with. And it's really funny that we're talking about this because we actually had really a time in the beginning.
We had a terrible experience.
We had a terrible
cleaners.
experience. Like it was not easy for us. It was not easy for us. So we closed on our cabin. You know, we closed on the cabin. We essentially, the day that we closed, as you might remember from the earlier episodes, went to the cabin to get the place set up because we had guests coming in like 3 or 4 days.
Right.
And this was a new construction cabin. Had never been in the cabin before. We kind of assumed that a lot of the furniture and everything would already be set up and that most everything would already be done. And yet when we walked in, nothing was done. There was like pieces of furniture that was kind of scattered around the cabin.
To be fair, the furniture was there, right? Yeah. Like the furniture that was supposed to be there, it was there, except for the oven and one of the cabinets, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But there were a lot of other details that we needed to put in there. It wasn't completely finished from a design standpoint. There were still a lot of things that were missing that we wanted to add from an amenity standpoint. And so there was a ton more work to do than we had initially anticipated. So when we walked in, we thought that we were going to be able to, do a little bit of setup, do, a little bit of preparing for our first guests, have some family time and like enjoy something.
Right.
Remember, I think that we even talked about, we even talked about going out and like seeing some of the sites, right? Because we hadn't been there in a while. That didn't happen. We saw a lot of the inside of the cabin. Yeah. And so one of the things on our list was to find cleaners while we were there. We wanted to interview cleaners. We were going to bring them into the cabin. We were going to be able to talk to a lot of people. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because we just didn't have the time. So we were scrambling last minute to find cleaners. We made a lot of mistakes. There are a lot of things that we would do differently next time. So hopefully we can kind of share that with you guys so that you can avoid some of those things so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that we did.
So probably one of the first places to start, I think, is to just go ahead and put it out there. Don't wait until the last second. At whatever point you feel like you're about to head towards closing and you feel like the property's yours, go ahead and start at that point. Start the journey on finding the right people. Because as you can tell from our journey, it wasn't fast to find the right cleaners and it wasn't easy to find the right cleaners. And it'll probably be one of the most time-intensive tasks that you'll have in the very beginning.
Yeah, and you're probably going to go through a lot of different cleaners, right? Yeah. Like going through several different cleaners before you find your team, that's not uncommon. I do hope that everybody listening is able to find a fantastic team right from the very beginning because that can happen. It's just not very likely. For us, I think that we went through 3 different cleaners before we finally found the ones that we wanted, and we made a lot of mistakes along the way. So, looking for those cleaners ahead of time. Don't wait until the last second. That way you're able to actually do some interviewing and you're able to get a wider variety of people, not just the people that are going to come in and do a last minute clean for you, within 24 hours before your guest comes in. You don't want to be in a position where you're having to make a fast decision because you want to be able to select the people that are going to be right for you and your property and your business.
Yeah. So then this takes us kind of to the first thing, which is probably the biggest question we get asked ask is, how do you even find the cleaners, right? So we obviously know, everybody knows Google. Like, just go to Google and type it in. So, for us, if you're in the Smokies, you can type in Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge cleaners, short-term rental cleaners. That'll pull up some things. Make sure you look at the reviews and things like that. So that's an easy one. Probably the biggest, though, recommendation that we have, and we've got a few, the biggest recommendation is actually just ask the other owners, right? There's a lot of people out there who will say, hey, no other owner is going to give you who their cleaner is because they don't want that cleaner to have a lot of business and then start to fail on their property. But we haven't actually found that to be the case at all. In most cases, all short-term rental investors, it's a pretty friendly community. And the information, I've always been I've always felt very supported in all the Facebook groups I'm in. Anytime I have a question, generally speaking, it'll get answered. This is one of those things where honestly, you just reach out to the community and you just say, hey, and you can specifically on Facebook find investors for each probably of the different communities. I know in Gatlinburg, there's like a Gatlinburg investors, short-term rental investor community on Facebook. That's where we reached out. But go to those places, reach out and just see if anybody's willing to share with you any of the people that they've had cleaning their properties, and to give you hopefully some kind of reference on who would be some good places to start for sure.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, a lot of investors don't have multiple properties, right? Like a lot of investors have 1 or 2 properties. If you have somebody cleaning your house, you're not going to have a turnover every single day, right? So those cleaners want more properties. They want to have a thriving business. They want to be able to do a great job and make, great money doing what they're doing. And if they're not able to make that money, they're probably going to try to find work elsewhere, right? So you can either help support a cleaner by helping make sure that they have enough cleanings to be able to support them and their families. And that's why a lot of investors will share their cleaners with other investors, because they want to make sure that their cleaner is happy. They want to make sure that their cleaner is able to continue doing the work and they continue to stay in the cleaning business.
Yeah.
So don't hesitate to ask, because you might actually be surprised how many people are willing to help.
Yeah. If there's an area that any investor or any short-term rental owner needs to be investing time and energy into, is making sure that their cleaner is happy and their cleaner is well taken care of, so that they can continue to do a good job for them and their property. Another possibility, and obviously I wouldn't go calling some of the big brands, but if there's some locally owned hotels that are in your area, that might be another place that you could give them a call and just say, hey, I have a short-term rental in the area. We're looking for a great cleaner or cleaning crew who's super experienced in the hospitality industry. Is there somebody that you would recommend? Is there somebody that you've worked with in the past? Or maybe, is there a great cleaner that you have on your crew? Again, like a Hilton's not going to give out their contact information of anybody to you, so don't do that. But there's definitely probably a locally owned hotel who has, believe me, probably been through plenty of cleaners and may be willing to give you a name of a person that you could reach out to hopefully find the right person for you and your property.
Yeah, and that would probably work pretty well in those areas that aren't, big vacation areas where it is a little bit harder to find a cleaner, where it is, harder for cleaners to find properties to clean, because again, they want to make sure that their cleaner is happy, that they have the work to be able to bring in the money for them and their family. So reaching out, the worst thing that they could do is say no, right? Like that's the worst thing that can happen. So reach out, see if you can get any leads from small, mom and pop motels.
And finally, another resource might even be, it's an app called Turnover B&B, and you've probably had more experience with this than I have.
Yeah. The second cleaner that we were looking for, the first one we actually found on Facebook because we needed a cleaner last minute, because we waited until the last second to find one. So we needed an answer pretty quickly. So we turned to Facebook. The second one, we took a little bit more time with. We interviewed more people. I used an app or a website called Turnover B&B, and this is basically a way for you to list your property and what you're looking for, and then cleaners can actually bid on your property. They'll give you the rates. They'll give you a little bit about them. You can set up interviews. And then if you decide to use that cleaner, you can actually manage them in Turnover B&B. You can pay them in Turnover B&B. You can connect your calendar. I think that there's even a way for them to take pictures of the property after it's been cleaned, to upload those photos so that you can see them. So that's a pretty good website that you can use as well to hopefully find some cleaners. I guess, the only experience that I've had with it is in the Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg area. So it may not be a good resource in every single vacation rental market, but it's a place that you can go and you can look at. And I believe that it's free for your first property. If you only have one property, then you're able to use it for free.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's assume now that you've found a couple of leads, that there's a couple of cleaners that you've been able to pull into the business and set up a call with them or set up an interview. That's really our next biggest thing, is to talk about the interview, because we really, really encourage you to interview them. We really encourage you to talk to them and talk with them. For a couple of different reasons. We're going to kind of talk about a couple of different things here. And I think, April, you were talking about don't be a people pleaser earlier.
Yeah. I am a recovering people pleaser. I very much want to make sure that the people that I'm working with don't feel bad about what I'm asking them to do. And that's something that I really struggled with in the very beginning, having cleaners and managing them. I didn't want to hurt their feelings, right? But at the end of the day, I am a business owner. We own a business, and there are certain things that need to be done. They need to be done a certain way because our business depends on it. So, making sure that you get your feelings out of the way. They're going to be uncomfortable. For me, it was uncomfortable having those discussions with the cleaners, kind of setting my expectations and then holding them accountable for those expectations that had been set and agreed to. So there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of conversations. Again, it was uncomfortable, but it was necessary.
Yeah, and I think to kind of add on to that, and I think this point is really important. Don't assume that the cleaner knows. Right. And I think that that's really important. Like, for any person, when you're walking into any new thing and you're talking with a professional who, you would have kind of assumed, or you would have kind of thought maybe have done this for a little while, they should know more than you. Just because they should know more than you doesn't mean that they do.
Or maybe they do know something that you don't, but the way that they think that the job should be done doesn't match up with the way that you think that the job should be done.
Right. And finding that alignment is crucially important. And that's one of the reasons why we really push to do an interview. In person is always going to be better. If you can't do it in person, make sure you do a Zoom call, because there's a lot that you can read from not just the way a person sounds when they're answering your questions, but also from their body language, like the way that they're connecting with you. And, when you're talking with somebody in person, you'll be able to get a feeling pretty quickly for if they really know what they're talking about and if they really have the experience to carry out exactly the level of service that you're looking for in your cleaner. Because again, like having the great cleaner is probably like one of the most important things when that you need to lock in when it comes to your short-term rental property, for sure. And I want to go back, and I think this is really important. Set the expectations early. So I can tell you, for the company that we're currently with, that was one of the things that we really appreciated with them. Like, when we approached, we had kind of gone through a couple of cleaners, and we approached them. At that point, we were like, okay, we've got to tell them. Like, we explained to them what our previous experience had been, the things that we didn't like. And then they were bringing on their side a lot of information that was really well thought out, that was already really well planned, gave us a lot of confidence in them. They basically was showing us what their cleaning checklist was. They were looking for feedback, things that we wanted to add to that, things, to kind of give them a little bit of a sense of exactly what our expectations were. So they learned our expectations, we learned their expectations, and then we were able to sign off on each other's expectations. So then we were actually able to walk in very, very clear-headed on what should be happening, how it should be happening, when it should be happening. And there was no, it really cut out on any kind of miscommunication that could have occurred, that could have happened. And what we've personally found is, in our journey so far, like, we've kept that cleaner, right. So having a cleaner that approaches their business like a business and communicates well with the clients, which is us, like, we found that to be incredibly, incredibly helpful. And honestly, we really haven't had any issues at this point. So I think this also goes to the next thing, which is asking questions, right? Like, asking lots and lots of questions. Like, what were some of the questions that we had in the beginning?
So one of the questions in the very beginning, so we have a cabin in the Smokies, right? And in the Smokies, for those of you who don't know, bears apparently are a very big thing. And so you have to lock up your trash. If guests are taking trash out of your house, you have to be able to put it into a bear safe trash container. And so we have these cages that were put up on the outside of our cabin, but they weren't there initially. So we asked our cleaners, we said, what do we do with all this trash? Well, we're waiting the 3 weeks for this trash to these cans to be installed. What are we supposed to be doing with our trash? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, well, you could just put it on the back porch. We'll come and we'll get it like same day that the guest checks out. It won't be a big deal. Like it'll be there for just a couple of hours. It's in the winter time. And so, the smell won't carry. It'll be perfectly fine. Like we'll come get it. Do you remember what happened with our second guest?
I do.
So talk our guest through.
So is this the New Year's Eve?
Yeah, this was the New Year's Eve story.
So again, we had only been up and running at this point for days. Right. Like this was
literal days, less than a week.
This was maybe the second or third turn that we had.
This was the very first turn. So we had a guest come in. They came in on the 26th. So they came in the day after Christmas.
Right. Second guest, first turn. Gotcha.
Yep. So first turn.
Yeah. So it was the first turn. Yeah. And so we get a call from the guest, or I guess we get a message through the app, and they're basically like, hey, there's trash here. And we were like, oh no, like in the trash can? Like, did they miss a bag of trash? They're like, no, there's bags of trash on the front porch.
Bags of trash on the porch. Bags of trash.
Yeah. And like, we were furious, right? Like and again, it's one of those things where they live there in the Smokies. They know that the bears are a problem. I know it's the winter. I get it. But like, they know that bags of trash, it should never be acceptable ever, right? That should never be a thing, whether it's on the back porch or it's on the front porch. But really the bigger issue for us is, when, and the reason why you should care so much as an owner is when the guests arrive and they see bags of trash left on the front porch, like something that is so egregious, like how, like I can see you forgetting to like sweep a room, I guess, but to leave bags of trash on the front porch, a guest is going to walk up, see that, and then in their mind, like it's already snapped. Like they're already looking for other things, right?
They're assuming that sheets weren't changed.
That's right.
They're assuming that the dishes are dirty, right? And we did approach that. We reached out to our cleaner, right? The first thing that you do anytime that there's an issue, you reach out to your cleaner and say, hey, this is what the guest, saw. Like what's going on? Can you give me a little bit of background? Because maybe they forgot. Like maybe they loaded up, like accidents happen, right? Like cleaners are people too. Everybody makes mistakes, like trying to give benefit of the doubt, right? But the cleaners got back to us and they were like, yeah, so all the dumps are full. We'll come back for it, in a couple days. A couple days? Like we have guests there now, and that's not even their trash.
Right. Right. And so, it was one of those things where it definitely was not in alignment. Like the expectations that we had for what the experience was going to be like for our guests obviously did not line up with what the experience our cleaners felt like was okay for our guests. Right. And so that was an obvious, like, okay, like this is not working out. So we appreciate everything you've done for us so far, but we're probably going to need to move on and find somebody else. And so that's just a great example. And they were the first or the second cleaners?
They were
the
very first cleaners. They were the ones that we found on Facebook, and we really hired them within a matter of minutes.
Yeah. And it really was. It was out of a need, and it was out of a pressure that we had getting this place set up and just getting it ready for our first guests. This does kind of bring us to our next point though, which is, we always want to encourage you, try to hire professionals, right? And this is kind of hard to kind of weed out. And this is where that interview will come in so handy. If you're able to get a Zoom call with them or you're able to see them in person, this will really help you with this. But, if you ask them like what their business name is, and then you go to Facebook and you can't find it anywhere, or maybe there's a page set up and there's like a few photos kinda, and there's like a few posts kinda from like 6 months ago, and then you don't see a website, there's no Google reviews, there's no feedback from other people who's used their services before. You just need to know, like, it may be okay if they can say, hey, we literally just started last week and we're ramping up. That's one thing, right? But if they're trying to approach you talking about all the experience that they have, and yet you can't find any trace of them online, that doesn't make sense.
That's probably a red flag.
That's probably a red flag. And you can still try it. If you're in a need and you need to do it, you got to do what you got to do. But just know going in, that you're entering into a far riskier situation. Than doing your due diligence, doing the research on the cleaning company, making sure that they've got some feedback and there's some reviews there from other clients that they have, other owners. That's just something that you kind of have to be aware of. And to that point, this is kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to hiring professionals. Listen, these people will be they will be what's the right word? They will be interacting. Thank you. They will be interacting with your guests. Like that's going to happen at some point. There might be a time when your cleaners are walking out the door and like your turn was the last one. And there's a new guest or a new family coming in at the exact moment that they're leaving. There's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. But how your cleaner like says hello, how they present themselves, how the way that they're dressing, all those things matter, right? How they interact with your guest matters, because this goes back to the other thing, right? If they don't feel like they can have a lot of confidence because of a weird interaction, like there's like so many things I could say, but like because of a weird interaction with a cleaner, then again, this does not breed confidence in your guests when they walk into that cabin. They're going to be looking for things that might be problematic, right? And if there's an issue, they might be a lot less able and less forgiving. And that could cause you big problems down the road. And I would also point out to a handyman too. This isn't about handyman, but typically the cleaners and the handyman kind of go hand in hand. That's another thing, even with handyman. Like when they come in, and let's say that your dishwasher's broken, the handyman comes in to take a look and see what's going on. 9 times out of 10, most of the guests just don't know how to operate the dishwasher. So like there's that. But if there's like a legitimate issue and the handyman's taking a look at the dishwasher and is like, hey, I can't fix this tonight. I got to go get a part or whatever. Again, you want that handyman to dress in a way that says he is a professional. You want that handyman to be able to interact and talk with your guest in a way that communicates, yes, I am a professional. I know what I'm talking about. This is not going to be able to be solved tonight, but this is what we're going to do to get this solved for you as soon as humanly possible, right? Your staff that you have there is a reflection of you, and it's a reflection of your cabin and a reflection of your property. And so if at any point, if something that they say or something that they do or the way they dress or the way they talk, I'll give you, for instance, one of the red flags that I had early on. I was actually there, and April, you weren't there.
Nope.
But I was there kind of getting things set up, and the cleaners were there because they were trying to clean as I was getting some things set up. And there was like one of the cleaners upstairs screaming through the house at the person who's downstairs about getting something or moving something. And you're like, well, that's not a big deal. Well, it kind of is, right? Like, it was kind of aggressive. And I'll be honest with you, I'm their client. Like, my guests are not their client. They should think they are. They should think of it that way, but they're not their client. I'm the client, right? And they were not professional in the way they communicated with each other to me, around me. And I knew instantly, if that's how they're going to, if they think it's okay to scream from one side of the house to the other. And it was like it was like annoying, right? Like it was like the annoying kind of screaming, not like a, hey, can you bring the broom? It was like a very aggressive, almost degrading kind of thing. It's just like a weird situation to be in. If they were doing that with me in the room, the person who's paying them, then they are for sure going to do it if for some reason they've got to come in and be in that house with a guest, right? And again, they and how they act is a reflection on you. So all this kind of brings us to the final thing that we wanted to talk about, which is how to kind of do checkups behind your cleaners and inspections, and kind of what we recommend here.
Yeah. So anytime that a new cleaner comes in, whether they have a lot of experience or not, I mean, you have to be able to have some way to check behind them to see whether or not they're doing things the way that you want them to be done, right? Are they dusting? Are they setting out the towels that they're supposed to? Are they making sure that there aren't any crumbs in the drawers? A lot of these things, even if you're having your cleaners take photos after the fact, you're not going to be able to see all these things in those photos. And the cleaner isn't going to necessarily tell you, right, that, hey, like I saw some crumbs in there, but I didn't clean them out. I just didn't have time, or I didn't want to, right? Like some people just don't want to do that. So we really encourage people, especially those that are managing their rentals remotely, hire a third party that will go in, that'll just do some random checks after the cleaners to check for things that the cleaners might have missed. So maybe you need to have them check to make sure that things are being done the way that you need them to be done. Checking for things that are important to you. Checking, I mean, even things that aren't cleaning related. Maybe the furniture needs to be tightened. Maybe there's the couches are worn out, or maybe the towels aren't as soft as they were supposed to be. They're a little bit threadbare and they need to be replaced. Having a third party person to go in there and do some of those inspections and give you that feedback is really essential as a property owner that is not going to be checking in on the property yourself. It's really important to have somebody there to be able to give you that feedback. And then once you take that feedback, you can then have those discussions with your cleaner so that they can better their process and they get better at doing the things to the standards that you're looking for. And then you also get more confident in their ability to actually do the things that you're wanting them to do because you have that feedback and you have those checks and balances.
Yeah. And there's two things I want to say here. First off, you don't want to use this as a gotcha tactic, right? Like you want to be upfront. It goes back to setting the expectations with your cleaning crew. Let them know that you've got somebody who comes through often to check on the property and that a part of their inspection is the cleaning. And then let them know, like, we're planning on doing that like twice a month and it's going to be at random dates, right? So that when there is a problem and you approach them about the problem, it doesn't feel like, like you had somebody sent because you didn't trust the cleaner. Like that breeds a lot of issues between you and your staff. And that's really what they are. They are your staff, right? It doesn't feel like it because you're paying another company, but theoretically, like they are an independent contractor of your business, right? In most cases, they're 1099s. So that's kind of the first thing to set the expectation early that there's going to be somebody coming through and checking. That will hopefully help them understand that you care at a much deeper level and they probably think that you do. And then you can be able to have a good foundation if there is a problem to go and have those conversations with that cleaner. The other thing here that I just want to mention, and we're going to say this a lot because I think this is so true. One of the big misconceptions about being a short-term rental investor is that you are a real estate investor and just a real estate investor, and you're not. You're a hospitality small business owner, right? And at the end of the day, when it comes to your cleaner and when you might have a person, especially if you're in a market that doesn't have a lot of cleaners out there, you might have a person who doesn't have a lot of experience in this, right? You, just like with any other employee or staff member or independent contractor that you would have in a small business, it is a part of your role and responsibility to train them, right? You know what the experience is that you're wanting for your guest, and it falls on you to ensure that you're training your staff up to the level of that excellence to make sure that things are happening the way that they should each and every turn. It really does fall back on the small business owner. It falls back on you. So I just want you to keep that in mind too when it comes to the cleaners. I also want to say, and this is a part of my experience that I've had being a small business owner for quite some time and working in other businesses, really set the tone and really set the environment that this is going to happen, that feedback is going to occur, and that's okay, right? Like to set the tone and set the environment with your 1099 contractors that we're all in this to grow together and that we're going to evolve together. There's going to be things I'll figure out along the way that I might change my mind on, and that's okay. There might be things that as you grow and as you evolve that you can teach me, and hopefully you'll have that dynamic back and forth. Those are the best relationships that you can possibly have, right? But again, at the end of the day, you're the person who has the risk, right? And I think that that's one of the things that we don't think about often when it comes to like a business owner, which you are as a short-term rental owner, the hospitality owner, and anybody who's walking into that short-term rental as a reflection of your business. You're the one with all the risk, right? I mean, if they don't do their job properly, then that could be a night refunded, or worse, that could be a 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star review. You know, as the small business owner, you're the person who's taking on a massive amount of risk. And if they don't do their job properly, somebody comes in, the next guest, and I don't want to like terrify you, right? I don't want to scare you, but like, if the next guest comes in, has a poor experience, gives you a 1-star review, and rightly so, right? Because the property isn't cleaned well,
for sure,
then that's going to tank your business. Like you're not showing up on page 1 anymore. Good luck showing up on page 5, and good luck booking more business, right? And especially if you're like 10 or 12 or 15 guests into your business, like it's not so easy just to start a whole new Airbnb page anymore, to take it down and start over, right? So again, I just want to go back and say this. It's massively important, right? Having first off, knowing what the experience is that you want for your guest, and then having the crew on site to be able to fulfill that experience. It's one of the most important roles and one of the most important jobs that you could possibly have as a short-term business owner. All right. So one of the last things that we want to do is we want to give you a couple of bonus tips here, like a couple of things that we learned that doesn't really fit into the rest of the conversation.
The first bonus tip that we have for you guys is that every new cleaner that you get in, I don't know if it's like a standard and like everybody talks like you're supposed to do this.
I feel like there's some kind of like cleaner school, and they're like, always say this to your new owners.
Yeah. So I mean, most of the time. And I don't think that this has ever not been true for us. Every single cleaner that will come in for the very first time, they're going to tell you how bad your previous cleaner was. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that you paid them to clean your place because it's terrible. They left X, Y, and Z here. They didn't dust the tops of the beds. They left crumbs underneath the counters. Every single cleaner that we've had has complained about the cleaner before them. So just expect that. Just nod and smile and say, yeah, thank goodness I was able to find you, and then just move on. Don't really read much into that. And also we've heard this, and we haven't really had this problem yet, but I've heard this from other owners, is that sometimes cleaners will complain a lot, some more than others. Mainly from what we can tell, because again, we don't have this experience.
Yeah,
it hasn't happened to us.
This hasn't happened to us.
But they'll complain about how messy the guest was and how long it took for them to clean, and how how much more money that they're going to have to be paid because they are cleaning excessively because the place was left so much dirtier than their typical guest. When this happens, make sure that you get pictures. Sometimes it could be true, right? Like you could have a party that came in and there's glitter everywhere and it takes 10 hours to clean. It's always possible, but make sure that you get that documented before you just reach out to the guest. 9 times out of 10, again, this is speaking from other owners' experience, 9 times out of 10, it's just the cleaner complaining. If there are excessive, messes that have to be cleaned up, then certainly you could reach back out to your guest to do a charge if you feel like that's warranted. But most of the time it's not. So make sure that you get those photos. If your cleaner is doing this repeatedly and every single clean that they come in
red flag
into is an excessively dirty guest, then they might be in the wrong business.
For sure.
Cleaners are supposed to be cleaning. Guests that come into your rentals, they're not wanting to clean up after themselves on vacation. In their view, they paid for a cleaning fee and they're going to not clean up after themselves after vacation because that's what the cleaners are there for. So just be aware of that. Make sure that you're talking with your cleaner. Make sure that if that is happening, that you have that conversation. And yes, like Nathan said, it's very much a red flag.
Yeah. Well, guys, hopefully this has been helpful. This is like a few of our experiences when it comes to cleaners, and it's definitely a lot of the questions that we get around, especially investors who are looking to invest investors who are looking to invest, a lot of short-term rental owners who are looking to invest remotely, like we are. We're here in South Carolina, and our rental is actually in the Smokies of Tennessee. So hopefully you guys got just a few things from this, a few tips that might be helpful to you in your journey as you're kind of ramping up your short-term rental business. Or if you've been in it for a little while, maybe you pulled a few things from this that were a few nuggets for thought. Thank you so much for joining us today. It means the world that you spent a little bit of time with us, and we're excited to see you in our next episode.
Good night, everyone.
See ya.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Hopefully this was really helpful to you in your journey of building a business. If you liked what you heard, please click subscribe and go to iTunes and give us a rating. That helps us out tremendously when we're producing, hopefully, content of huge value to you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I hope that you have an amazing week. Go out there and crush it. I'll see you soon.